Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SCA's 54th monthly Zoom presentation. We're now well into our second half century, so to speak, of monthly Zoom presentations and with no end in sight. My name is Brian Gallagher. I'm the president of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and I'm proud to be your host tonight. Welcome to all our guests and to any new people we have with us. We're happy you took the time out of your late autumn evening to watch an SCA presentation, and I hope you enjoy the show. And for anybody watching the recording of this episode of the SCA's monthly presentations who's not a member of the SCA, we earnestly ask you to consider joining. Funding for the various activities of the SCA comes almost exclusively from our membership. Just visit our website at www.sca-roadside.org and follow the links. And now I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's presentation, which is The Cave Painters of Schoharie County. Ronald Ladouceur, and I'm probably not saying that right, but he can correct us when he comes on, a longtime SCA member, will present the fabled history of secret caverns billboards, and there's bits of it that might even be true. Just east of Cobleskill, Schoharie County in upstate New York, a dozen or so peeling billboards advertise, though only barely, a show cave called Secret Caverns. Considered eyesores when first painted in the 80s and 90s, and perhaps even satanic, 35 years of weathering, retouching, and some simple getting used to have transmuted the billboards into a now legendary display of outsider art. Let's join Ron on a journey into the imaginings of the key artists responsible for these wild creations. Three small town kids, too smart by half, searching for something to leaven the back-breaking labor they were assigned. Kids who love comics, music, and weed, not necessarily in that order. Kids with no formal artistic training, who matured into psychedelic Picassos. Ron is the principal and founder of Post Marketing, a branding, design, and digital media agency in Schenectady, New York. Among his duties as a member of the SCA Board of Directors, Ron manages and maintains the SCA website, which I might say is an absolutely excellent example of the genre. In addition, Ron teaches media studies at Rensselaer Polytechnic University and advertising in the School of Business at the University at Albany. He also volunteers his web and promotional skills to support several regional nonprofits and spends a good deal of his free time, if any, documenting, researching, and contextualizing ghost signs and googie treasures. Ron holds a BA in General Studies from the State University of New York at Oneonta in 1981, and an MA in Liberal Studies from State University of New York, Empire State University, 2008. With that, Ron, I'd like to welcome you to the program, and if you can start sharing your screen, we'd like to see your presentation.
We'll do that right now. We good?
Yes, we are good. Cool. All right. Now we are good.
Okay, very good. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this presentation, The Cave Painters of Schoharie County, the fabled history of secret caverns billboards, with bits that might even be true. I'm Ronald Ladouceur. I'll be your guide this evening to the strange and unsettling signs that grew like a field of psychedelic mushrooms from the dark magic of an also-ran show cave in upstate New York. Considered eyesores when they first appeared in the 80s or 90s, so odd they were even rumored to be demonic, the dozen or so hand-painted billboards scattered across the Schoharie Plateau promoting secret caverns are the very weathered and beaten survivors of some 40 folk art plywood canvases painted and repainted across 35 weed and weirdness-fueled summers. Tonight, we're going to be talking about actually the four artists most responsible for these creations. A man by the name of Tyrone Donnelly, Kurt Pillar, Todd Del Martyr, and Eugene Falco, with a focus on the partnership of Pillar and Del Marter. Now, there are about 45,000 unexplored caves in the United States. Of them, only about 80 operate as show caves, or caves that have been made accessible to casual tourists. Show caves are arguably America's oldest roadside attraction. The first, Wayer's Cave, pictured here in Virginia, now called Grand Caverns, hosted its first tour in 1806. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky opened about a decade later in 1816, and cave tours of Howe Caverns, just down the road from Secret Caverns, got underway as early as the 1840s. As attractions, show caves have had their ups and downs. But as Douglas Powell writes in Endless Caverns, the show cave has stubbornly outlived 200 years worth of mineral springs resorts, tourist camps, Wild West towns, and miniature golf courses. To orient us, here's a map of the explored caves in the US, and Secret Caverns is located here on the Schoharie Plateau in central New York. It is about 40 miles west of Albany and about 3 hours northwest of New York City. Its fantastic signs greet visitors from the north, south, east, and west. But as hinted by the billboard in the background, most visitors to this upstate cave region aren't drawn to the location by Secret Caverns, but by its larger and far better advertised rival, Howe Caverns, which is located about a mile and a half closer to civilization down the main access road. Howe Caverns promotes itself as the second most popular natural attraction in New York, right behind Niagara Falls. It was purchased by a private concern in 2008 and has seen considerable development since, including an animatronic Lester Howe, the cave's first developer and namesake. Secret Caverns was always forced to play a weaker hand. Compared to Howe, Secret Caverns is small with far fewer, far less showy formations. The need to compete seems to have driven it to madness, slowly, and as they say, then all at once. For 50 years, beginning in 1929, Secret Caverns survived with a pretty simple pitch. Low cost admission plus, starting in the 1940s, the promised spectacle of a 100-foot underground waterfall. Basic sans serif signs repainted over the decades did an adequate job of attracting a steady stream of Howe tourists seeking a second helping of cave. But from its origin, Secret Caverns carried a chip on its shoulder. Meet Roger Mallory, a civil engineer responsible for many of the tourist tunnels and other improvements that brought Howe Caverns back online in the 1920s after it had been closed for about 25 years. In fact, Roger Mallory was a hero, having single-handedly rescued 5 workers stranded at the far end of Howe Caverns during a flash flood. But after Mallory was denied the contract to construct Howe's elevators, relations broke down. Mallory floated a $200,000 stock offering and got right to work developing his competing cave. Now, Howe Caverns has always played it straight and has pretty much ignored its pipsqueak rival, at least publicly. Secret Caverns, on the other hand, leans into its chip on the shoulder identity. Early on, it made claims against Howe for erecting billboards on state land. And while it sometimes played it straight and still does, it would do things like erect this cheeky billboard set at Howe's exit, which reads, "If you haven't seen the 100-foot waterfall, you haven't seen guano. How come you haven't seen Secret Caverns?" It also deploys guerrilla marketing tactics like this, and has a display in its current lodge commemorating the fire that burned down its original lodge, hinting in this display at possible arson by its rival down the road. Pictured here is R.J. Mallory, Roger Mallory's grandson, who since the 1980s has served as the attraction's manager. Often referred to as elusive, on my visits to secret caverns, I found Mallory effusive. But I learned from those that know him well that a life of fast cars, motorcycle crashes, and cave vapors should lead us all to take anything Mallory says with a truckload of salt. RJ, though, is responsible, if only indirectly, for the cave's 35 years of billboard magic, if only by being a really hands-off boss. Kurt Pillar started working for Secret Caverns on his 14th birthday in 1984. His older brother Chris had gotten him the job. They were just teenage tour guides given the ancillary task of touching up the attraction's decades-old billboards. The job, according to Pillar, was awful, hot, with bugs, barbed wire fences, angry landowners, and uneven ground to prop ladders on. And as Pillar says, it was just slapping black, white, and red paint over already existing paint. According to Pillar, it was his older brother Chris who opened the first cracks of weirdness by one day, out of sheer boredom, painting out the block letters S and C on an old sign and repainting the letters in a Gothic font. This was all the permission his younger brother, Kurt, the wildly imaginative lone goth in his high school, needed. Sometime in the mid-1980s, on a fresh plywood billboard erected to replace a sign destroyed by a freak tornado, unconcerned with any rules of good design, good taste, or promotional benefit, Pillar painted the embryonic precursor to all the oddness that would follow. Under a headline, Things You Won't See at Secret Caverns, Pillar placed 3 crude gargoyles and a Grateful Dead dancing skeleton, framing a demonic clown menacing Huck Finn, which makes no sense unless you know that Huck Finn was at that time the brand mascot of How Caverns. The iconography was a collective effort. The skeleton was stolen from the Grateful Dead, as was the cavern's iconic caveman. It was clearly a portrait of Jerry Garcia, but the boys defended it to their boss as being a portrait of him, RJ. Other influences claimed or clear include fad art from the 1960s, like ugly stickers and Mad Magazine. And Robert Crumb is also mentioned a lot in these weirdos models, which some of our older members may remember. And of course, comic books. Donnelly was the only painter with a little artistic training, and he introduced the colorful dinosaurs and other prehistoric imagery. But without a doubt, the most influential source for the strangeness that would follow was Donnelly's introduction to the team of the parody religion known as the Church of the Subgenius, a cynical pre-internet 80s zine-era creation spoofing cults before it became one itself. A telephone company clip art illustration claimed by the parody cult authors to be a portrait of the cult's founder, J.R. Dobbs, was mashed up with older advertising imagery, new cryptic iconography, and P.T. Barnum meets Zen Cohen copy. Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo became a devotee, and the Devo Energy Dome, the hat you can see on Mothersbaugh's head here, can be seen on several of Secret Caverns billboards. Donnelly, probably to his long life and health, escaped to a career in the USGS. And that left Pillar and Del Marder to fly free, untethered by Donnelly's relative sobriety. Kurt Pillar, misidentified here as Todd Pillar, though retired from his Secret Caverns work, remains the celebrated artist in the attraction's pantheon. In news articles and dozens of posts on Roadside America and elsewhere, Pillar is lauded. A poster of his work is a popular item in the attraction's gift shop. Now, his reputation is certainly deserved. From fairly crude efforts as a teenager, like this early bat with a bad pun, bat this idea around, which led Mallory which led to Mallory saying, "Kurt, no more bats. People are afraid of bats," which led Pillar and Delmarter to start painting bats on all their signs and painting lots of them, to increasingly better rendered directionals, to this fabulous mature work, John Margulies memorialized Grateful Dead inspired and now, unfortunately, overpainted masterpiece, to this goofy pun provided by Pillar's father, 4 out of 5 dentists prefer our cavity, to this trippy country delight, like a limestone cowboy, to this politically incorrect airbrush experiment, which is still decaying rather slowly up on the plateau. Here's a picture of Kurt in full airbrush garb as he was painting it, to this collab filled with Donnelly and Delmarter's iconography, to this masterclass in carnival typography, and this early but still standing example, which may be my favorite, as it reveals in its missing panel a bit of the original Secret Caverns billboard. Though Pillar and Delmarter do not describe their working relationship as an artistic collaboration, more a workman's partnership, the sheer size of their canvases often forced the two into dialogue. This 16 by 48-foot sign on Route 20 in Sharon, New York, 14 miles from the cave entrance, was far enough away from Mallory's eyes that the boys felt free to experiment, and so big that Pillar and Delmarter had no choice but to openly and co-equally share its expanse. What emerged was a phantasmagoria of ripped-off illustrations, bad puns, and popular cultural references, transmuted into a postmodernist commentary that promotes its product through a quite intentional effort not to. Twice taken out by runaway cars and significantly revised when repainted, the sign is now barely legible, with several plywood panels missing. It seems destined to disappear soon. But even in its advanced state of decay, its weirdness shines through. Todd Delmarter is rarely credited independently by outside critics. In fact, he's quite self-deprecating as an artist, and he says, really, he spent most of his time filling in the lines that Donnelly and Pillar created. But I think he both underestimates himself, he clearly underestimates himself, and is underestimated by the critical voices outside and currently inside Secret Caverns. A self-described, politically incorrect country boy, as he says, with opinions he is sure you'd rather he did not share, Delmarter's professional life has been a series of contentious relationships. Now in his mid-50s and currently the co-owner of a honeybee supply store, Delmarter is pained by his Secret Caverns experience. In fact, he says he very much looks forward to the day when the last vestiges of his hand as an artist at Secret Caverns disappears. To punctuate this claim, when Delmarter gifted me his painter's briefcase earlier this year, and this is one of my prized possessions, he did so with the instruction to never give it back. For if I did, he said, he would throw it in the river. There is just one billboard we can credit to Delmarter solo. Let's call it a Little Abner on Acid affair, now consigned to the underside of the property's picnic pavilion. Invisible to all who don't intentionally seek it out, it's easily criticized for its stereotypic depiction of hillbillies, which even at the time of its creation, which was circa 2010, was a half century past its prime. Y'all Come Back is the work that most clearly delineates Delmarter's unsettling hand in Secret Caverns' collected oeuvre. Delmarter's work as a soloist does adorn the Secret Caverns Lodge. Here, making light of the standard show cave claim that it was once designated as a fallout shelter, or here, surviving disparagingly as the decorations leading to the public restrooms, and then in the restrooms themselves. Delmarter's billboards have been characterized unfavorably as blocky, with poor character rendering. And I'll admit I'm probably more attracted to the weathered remains of his once too brightly colored originals. But his best billboards are, in my opinion, masterpieces. This cinemascope and 3D panorama greets visitors just a short distance from the cave lodge. With some illustration support from Pillar, it is mostly an example of Del Marter's outsiderness. As Pillar states, Todd's imagination was out there. We can glimpse how Del Marter and Pillar collaborated with this set of drawings for a billboard that featured caricatures of owner R.J. Mallory's kids. Del Marter would come up with an idea, then he would find a reference from some stock catalog. Then he would have Pillar more competently render it, and then he would paint it on plywood with a foam brush. He would then add to this his own stock creatures from a very fertile imagination. Here's another quick example of Del Marter's style. When a Pillar original needed a repaint, Del Marter happily improved the work, adding a leaf head to Pillar's rendering of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Oh, sorry. Falco, by the way, considers Del Marter's edition a work of vandalism, while Pillar celebrates it as a piece of brilliant artistic skill. Still on display on the lightly trafficked side of Secret Cavern's entrance is Del Marter's last billboard for the attraction. Painted in 2012 in collaboration with Falco, it is a composition of amazing virtuosity and quirk. Surviving sketches suggest the right side and the entire lower portion is the work of Del Marter. His idiosyncratic iconography, his hillbillies and green squid monster and fossil man, and this one, favorite of mine, it's a cow flashing the dinosaur and caveman band by removing her cow bra and exposing her udders. And the cow is on the shoulders of one of the cave guides, or caricature of one of the cave guides at the time. And here we see Bob from the Church of the Subgenius flying by a portrait of the painters in action. I really love this little bit of detail, and it's tiny on this huge sign. Now, there is nothing right about this work as either art or advertising, which, in my opinion, makes it so great. Goofy, juvenile, even Pillar, Donnelly, Del Marter, and Falco's collaborative work opened a fissure, a weird crack in our all too commercial reality, not unlike the cavern experience their billboards promote, and not unlike all the signs, diners, motels, and attractions we at the SCA celebrate. From the mid-1990s on, these artists mixed and layered appropriated images with vernacular typography, puns, a menagerie of nearly indecipherable iconography, and large doses of Dadaesque strangeness. Over a prolonged adolescent rebellion to create a body of outsider art that is simultaneously charming and unsettling. Most of the work of Pillar and Del Marter has been repainted, stolen, or left to rot. Far more originals have been lost than remain, and those that still stand are scheduled to be recreated and encased in vinyl. Now, Falco, the last of our four, is a very talented illustrator. His work much admired and sought after. But he seems to be on a mission to encase and erase the work of Pillar and Del Marter, taking this early sign, for example, and repainting it and signing it, which is something that Pillar and Del Marter rarely did. Now, Pillar and Del Marter are strangely philosophical about this inevitability, about their work decaying and disappearing. Their acceptance, perhaps, offers lessons for those of us wondering how much effort we should apply to preserving our faded roadside heritage. As Del Marter writes, the work of the sign painter's hand molders away with the vicissitudes of time. Each sign created passes into oblivion sooner or later. The effort, the ideas, the money earned from the effort, camaraderie, all passes. Art imitates life. Now, Delmarto finds that to be kind of a depressingly philosophical. I find it to be very, very strangely uplifting. And that, believe it or not, is already the end of my show.
Well, thanks so much, Ron. That was, I mean, it's unfortunate that we're doing this by Zoom because everybody's muted, including myself. And during the course of it, I was laughing my head off. Like some of the signs and your commentary as well are absolutely hilarious.
No,
And really, really funny. That was a top-notch presentation. I really enjoyed that. Now, we've only had one comment come in so far, or one question, and that is how many people do you think actually go to secret caverns these days? I mean, is anybody going there?
well, they're a very, I've been there a few times now, obviously, and they're a very laid back crowd. They used to get a lot of bus tours. In fact, one of the reasons that airbrush sign that is kind of politically incorrect, kind of Chinese pagoda thing, is there is because they used to get a lot of tourists from China. But immigration policies in the US have kind of put that on hold. It's difficult. Chinese tourists used to come into the city, into New York, and then they would take a bus up to Niagara Falls, and kind of one third the way to Niagara Falls, they'd stop at Howe Caverns, and then they'd stop at Secret Caverns. So Howe is the main attraction, and Secret Caverns gets probably during their busy season maybe 50 visitors a day.
Okay,
Uh, yeah,
not that busy.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And you can, and it's a hoot because you can walk in and you can meet the owner, and the cave guides will say, "Yeah, you're the only people here. Come on down." And they'll go down, and the cave guides are, they're instructed to be, kind of intentionally anti-how. They're in fact, several of them, Del Marter is a good example, are ex Howe Cavern tour
Oh,
guides because they got fired by Howe Caverns for being a little too random in their comments. And so with Secret Caverns, you walk down in Secret Caverns and you cave experiences are pretty much the show cave experience is pretty much the same experience no matter what show cave you go to in the United States. You're kind of led to a ramp, and then you're given a little stalagmite, stalactite, kind of lesson, and you're told very specifically, don't touch anything because the oils of your hand will darken the flow stone that's on the wall. And then they show an example at Secret Caverns of a place where people have touched it and it's all dark. And they say, but here at Secret Caverns, we really don't care. Touch anything you want. And then they leave the room.
oh my goodness, that is hilarious.
It
I
is really funny.
yeah, I am just loving this. Like, I got to go to this place now. It's as a matter of fact, well, as many or some of you will know anyway, our next SCA conference is in Niagara Falls. But I wish we had more time because we definitely have to make this a
It's a trip.
stop. But
Mhm.
it's just a little bit too far away. We have a pretty full agenda already.
Wondering if anybody here has ever been to Howe Caverns, and if they have, if they've ever been up to Secret Caverns.
If you have, say so in the chat, and we'll put you on to say what your experience was like. But we have some more questions now. Allison Baker says, "Is it just me, or is this somewhat similar to Matt Groening's art, the Simpsons originator animation? And how about similarities to record album art?" And a third question: are there similar kinds of billboard art in other parts of the country, such as Florida, Route 66, that sort of thing?
Well, these remind me a little bit of south of the border, right? I mean, they're each very individualized, but I know of nothing quite as, super stoner as these billboards. These things are just the key artist here, Kurt Pillar, is true. major eccentric, and he's brilliant. I mean, the cave guys, R.J. Mallory, whose veracity we must question, says the kid's got 170 IQ. When I told them after interviewing Kurt that Kurt, who's in his later 50s right now, has got a 4-year-old kid, they said that guy reproduced. Uh, and there's you can find some of his art online. He's really, really, really interesting. Now, for sure, album art from the 70s was a major in fact, the one billboard that has the one panel that's fallen off that exposes the old billboards, that one is just ripped off album art. In fact, all the puns are, Stairway to Heaven, and Rush and uh,
Mhm.
uh, um, Matt Groening, I think, and these guys are really more contemporaries. So I think they were being influenced simultaneously by the same set of oddball ideas.
Okay, Josh Silber, one of our board members, has
Hi,
said
Josh.
he has been to, let me just see what he says here. He has been to Howe. He's been to Howe, but not the secret caverns. And now he says he has to go.
Gotta go.
There's some good neon in Howe's Cave, New York. I guess it's the same. It's the same place. Josh, do you want to? I can unmute you if you like, and you can maybe tell us a little bit about your. Here we go. Uh, if you're there and you want to say anything, you can unmute yourself now.
I'm here. I don't have much to say other than Ron, I loved it. What a delight to see this stuff. It's so just of a time, really, of a time and place that's very charming in upstate New York way. Where I'll be tomorrow, by the way, in Albany, near you.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and the caves are great. They're very special. They're really, really unique and special up there.
Paul Sherman asks a very interesting question. Did Howe Caverns retaliate at all against secret caverns for all the trash talk they were taking?
Yeah. How plays the straight man? They're much bigger, much better capitalized, much more famous. A much bigger cavern, although a big hunk of the cavern got lost to the cement plant that sits at the end of the cavern. For the
Oh,
25 years Howe was closed, it was closed because limestone was a key ingredient in cement, and they chopped off about half of the cave mining limestone.
oh my
Uh,
God.
but it's still it what remains is really quite by northern glaciated cave standards, still quite a nice experience. And they're like, you you guys do whatever you do, and they've also learned, because Howe Caverns and Secret Caverns are both marginal businesses to a good degree. Caves are kind of marginal businesses. They've kind of learned that the rivalry is actually good PR.
Mhm.
So they play the straight man. Secret Caverns plays the pecker, and they both get along. Just kind of knowing what their role is. In fact, there's common ownership. The Mallory family owns 5% of the stock of Howe Caverns.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I had a question, and that was like with all the references to the Grateful Dead and other rock and roll icons and everything, was there any comeback from those businesses or those agents saying, "Hey, you can't use our stuff and just copyright and all the rest of it"?
Yeah, probably after we publish this video, yeah, they might get into trouble. It was definitely like an ask forgiveness, not permission thing. And they were also kids. I mean, they were painting some of these signs before they were 20.
Yeah.
Uh, and they never thought twice about that kind of stuff. It certainly was technically illegal. The Grateful Dead, fortunately, is really chill about that kind of stuff. They let people pirate, bootleg their albums. They never
Mhm.
really cared. It became part of their kind of, their shtick.
Yeah.
And so, but no, they never got into trouble. I mean, Kurt and Todd got into trouble with the cave owner constantly, who would then go race his motorcycle and kind of forget that he was mad at them. I mean, I guess the guy has had a concussion to the point of being in a coma for a couple of weeks
Oh
twice.
my God.
Twice from motorcycle racing, and still like loves to talk about it and do it. And he's
Oh my
there.
goodness.
I mean, the it's just something that grows out of the weirdness that is caves.
Yeah.
I mean, we looking into like the history of these things. You guys probably know more about this than I do, but we people since the opening of Weyer's Cave in 1806, we project all kinds of thoughts onto caves. Caves are these magical places. In the early Republic, they were thought to be places where ancient Israelites and Egyptians migrated to the United States through these tunnels. And it was a way to kind of say we're connected as a culture to the ancients, and kind of being able to kind of bypass all the Native Americans that were kind of just recently slaughtered in the process.
Yeah, right. Wow, that is fascinating. I mean, that's a whole show right among itself, right there.
Different show, yeah.
Yeah, different show. I did see a couple of electoral signs in, I think it was in the picnic, no, in a workshop or something. It said, "Oh, reelect," and it was the name of the founder
Yep.
to town council
Yep.
or something. So I guess they're a little politically active down there too.
Yeah, they're Cobleskill royalty. No, Cobleskill, it's like that's a big fish in a small pond for sure. But Roger, the kind of founding member, the civil engineer that both developed How Caverns and Secret Caverns. The picture that I showed is from his pilot license from 1935. He was quite a charismatic character, but really ended up having to work for himself because he kind of burned all the relationships he ever had with anybody else. His son became a lawyer in Cobleskill. His son's wife did as well. RJ's, the current owner has run for office a couple of times. He's not succeeded. But the family is really embedded in, for what it's worth, Cobleskill
Yeah.
royalty.
Well, I mean, I haven't been to either of those caverns, but I have been a couple of times. No, you say it's Schoharie. Is that how it's pronounced?
Harry.
Schoharie. Okay.
Harry.
Schoharie. Okay, Schoharie. Now I know.
Gary.
A couple of times I have been to Schoharie Crossing, which was an aqueduct that took the original Erie Canal over the Schoharie Creek or river.
Yep.
And it's well preserved, although a portion of it is gone. It's been washed away or dismantled, maybe for the stones and everything, but quite a bit of it is there. And it's very long disused, of course, but it's very, very impressive. So if anybody's going up to Schoharie County to see the caverns, then make sure you go to see the crossing as well. It's equally interesting, although it's more industrial archaeology rather than commercial archaeology. So, okay, Ron. Well, we don't have any more questions and comments, so I'm just going to finish things off here. Again, thank you so much for that. I was laughing my head off at that thing. It's one of the funniest presentations I've seen in this Zoom series. It's very, very good.
Well, we all needed a laugh tonight, so I'm glad.
Yes, that's true. It's been pretty tense over the last couple of months, so that was something to relieve the pressure a little bit. I'd just like to remind everybody again about next month, Wednesday, December the 4th, at our usual time of 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific. Deborah Jane Seltzer will present Getting the Most Out of Your Road Trips. And Deborah Jane, who is a longtime SCA member, has documented the buildings, signs, and statues at her website, roadsidearchitecture.com, for 25 years, sorry. She's also been writing about signs for SCA publications. You've all seen her column in every single issue of the journal and the road notes for 17 years. And in her presentation, she'll reveal her planning and travel strategies. Now, SCA members will be receiving the relevant details very shortly by email and registration link. Other members, other people can register through the SCA website directly. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening, and expect if you're not a member of the SCA, you can expect an email shortly inviting you to join and enjoy all the benefits of membership. And of course, the program tonight will be available on the SCA's website as a recording within a day or two. Since Ron is in charge of posting them up on the website, I'm sure that will happen very quickly. Ron, was there any last words you wanted to say? I see you put a nice comment there that you enjoyed giving the presentation. Did you want to say anything last words?
Well, just good night, everyone. Take it easy.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you again, Ron, and everyone that came out tonight. And I will echo Ron's comments of good night, and we will see you next week. Oh, next month. We'll see you next month. Sorry.